Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I thought I'd do something a little different from my normal reviews and talk through 5 exciting cars coming out in 2022. I also thought I'd take this opportunity to celebrate hitting 500 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for getting me there. My goal is to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. I wanted to do a little intro on myself since I figure most of you guys probably don't know who I am or know anything about me. So obviously my name is Steven based on my very creative channel name, and I'm 27 years old. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I got into cars probably relatively recently, about 3 years ago, mainly because I travel a decent amount for work, and it was always fun trying out different cars at airport rental car agencies. And then I discovered Turo, which really opened my eyes in terms of what you can really rent out there. So now I always try to get a super fun car to review whenever I go on vacation. I really haven't been a car enthusiast for too long, but I started doing reviews earlier last year at the beginning of 2021, and it's been super fun since then, and looking forward to giving you guys many more reviews in the future. If you're curious, I currently drive a 2016 Lexus ES350 in Matador Red. Super gorgeous car, I love it. I'll be doing like a 5 to 6 year ownership review of that at some point coming up, because I'm actually buying a new car this year. I won't spoil the surprise on what that is, but I will definitely be putting out a review for that as well in the future. Alright, so let's get started with these 5 exciting cars coming out this year. Keep in mind, this is in no particular order, just wanted to talk through 5 different cars. So the first one I have on my list here is the 2023 Acura Integra. So this one I'm very excited for because it's a sports sedan, and after driving the fully redesigned TLX A-Spec earlier this year, or last year, I was floored by that. I mean, so much more fun than I expected, and Acura has really taken a huge leap forward there, and that's kind of Acura's roots, right? Being like the sporty division of Honda, and it's exciting to see, a new name, or actually, an old name coming back, but in a new redesign, essentially. So I love that really bright yellow that they use for the press release colors, and the Integra on the side of the car. It all looks fantastic, and I mean, I'm really hoping an Integra Type S will come out eventually, because that would be super cool. I feel like it kind of has to, given the sporty name, but overall, I'm just really excited for them to put out another sports sedan. I do think the lineup will be kind of confusing because you'll have the Integra taking the place of the ILX, and then you have the TLX, and then you have the RDX and MD. It's like the Integra doesn't follow the naming convention of the rest of the cars, so that'll be a little confusing, but I'm really excited to see them bringing this nameplate back, and starting at $30,000, this car is going to be a very good bargain for people who want to go into that small sports sedan segment, which unfortunately isn't doing so well. I feel like I have a soft spot for it just because I like sedans, and honestly I think that the idea of a sporty sedan is both practical and fun, and I still think the handling dynamics are going to be more interesting on a sporty small sedan than something like a compact SUV, So at the end of the day, I really do think this car is going to do moderately well. I hope that it does better than people are expecting, because I just think it's not a really big market right now. So hopefully things will, spice that up in the future. I also think it's really interesting that the design of it is kind of like a hatchback a little bit. It's like a lifted hatchback, which is really interesting. And I hope people like it, and I hope it gets Acura a lot of sales. Some other exciting things about the new Integra are that it comes standard with a limited slip differential, so it's going to bring those sports car roots to you. Also, of course, it has the traditional reliability from the Japanese automakers, which hopefully make it a step better than some of the German rivals. Also, it shares a chassis and the engine with the new Civic Si that just came out earlier this year. It's a turbocharged 1.5 liter engine. We don't know the horsepower figures yet, but it does come standard with a 6-speed manual option, which is pretty cool. So I think a lot of the enthusiasts are really going to appreciate the Integra coming back. This is planned for a spring 2022 release, so we should start seeing this hit dealerships pretty soon. All right, number 2 on my list of 5 exciting cars coming out this year is the 2022 Audi RS3. So again, another sports sedan, obviously. Like I said, I really do enjoy sports sedans. I think they're a really cool market. Unfortunately, kind of dying out in the US, but I'm glad to see Audi bringing it back with the RS3. I love that bright neon green color that they've been using in the press colors. I think it looks fantastic. So this car is really interesting because it starts at just about $60,000, which makes it relatively cheap compared to a lot of other things. Obviously, you don't have as much practicality as something like the RS4 or something like that, right? Or even the RS5 or any of the other larger rivals. But this car does really have stiff competition. You've got the M2 competition that everyone loves. That one's obviously very popular, but I do think the RS3 brings a lot nicer styling in my opinion, and also I really like the interior. Honestly, I love Audi interiors. I think they're way better than BMW, especially in some of their smaller sports cars, and I definitely think that our RS3 is going to be a great option for buyers. The A3 has been long overdue for a makeover, so it's really good to see Audi kind of giving them the up-to-date tech and appearance and, you know, kind of getting the design language in form with the rest of the lineup. So again, this car starts at about $60,000, and I think the really interesting part about this car is that it has 5 cylinders for the engine, which is super unique, and I think that makes this really an appealing choice for people who want a unique car. I actually feel like there's going to be a really interesting divide between people who want the new Lexus IS500 versus the RS3, because both of them have really unique options, right? The IS500, you get that V8 that, you know, is really going to be dying out for sure. In this one, you have a 5-cylinder engine, 2.5 liter turbocharged, and it creates 401 horsepower. So obviously a lot of power, and you are definitely going to have a lot of fun with this car. I feel like it's probably not going to be the best for people who want a more sublime ride. You know, this is definitely going to be on the sporty side. The suspension is definitely going to be very firm, but I'm excited to see how this does against competitors like that M2 that I mentioned. The RS3 has all-wheel drive though, which is going to be really interesting. It also has a torque vectoring rear axle that they've talked about a lot to help it handle in slippery conditions, which is definitely something that M2 does not have. But yeah, this is going to be relatively practical, and I think that is the one edge it has over the BMW M2. So this is planned for a summer 2022 release, so we should see this towards you know, the middle of this year, and I'm really excited to see how this car does. Next up, number 3 on the list of exciting cars for 2022, the upcoming Ford Bronco Raptor. So I feel like I have a weird thing for high performance like trucks and stuff like that really shouldn't be high performance. Obviously my F-150 Shelby Super Snake review was one of my favorite reviews I've ever done, if not my favorite. I mean, it was just so weird to drive such a massive car, 700 plus horsepower, and the styling is ridiculously over the top. But I had so much fun with that car, and I think, you know, the Ford Bronco Raptor is really going to bring that same thing. And I'm actually super excited because I will be renting a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 soon, so I will be giving you guys a review of that. And want to see how it compares with the Ford Bronco Raptor. Hopefully I can get my hands on that. They're not sure right now if it's going to be for the 2022 or 2023 model year. But you know, either way, it's going to be coming out some point this year. Pricing is going to, it looks like it's going to undercut the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 by a little bit. That one starts at about $75,000, and the Ford Bronco Raptor might be closer to the $65,000 mark. And I mean, it's going to have a nicer interior. As of right now, I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that the Bronco is a better car overall than the current Wrangler. And obviously Jeep, I'm sure, is you know, they're definitely working very hard. Their R&D team is definitely working to come out with, you know, a refreshed design and stuff, because the current Wrangler has just been a little stale at this point. But yeah, I find it super fascinating that, you know, for the longest time the Jeep Wrangler just went untouched as the king of off-roading trucks, right? It sells ridiculous amounts of units in the US, and finally, like, bringing back the Bronco essentially is just, it was a good idea on Ford's part, and honestly it's just a good move for the auto industry in general, because it forced Jeep to kind of realize, wow, we need to do things to the Wrangler, keep it up to date, give it better tech, things like that, give it more creature comforts, because the Bronco, as of right now, the exterior styling is fantastic, looks way better than the Wrangler, and I'm all Team Bronco right now. All right, let's move on to number 4 here. The only EV that makes this list is the 2022 Kia EV6. So this one, if you watched my auto show review from the Chicago Auto Show last year, the EV6 floored me. I mean, I love the styling. I think it looks great. Some people are kind of polarized on like the back. I think it looks super cool. It kind of reminds me of like the Cybertruck, honestly, but much better executed. But yeah, it's the only EV to make my list, and I just love this car. I think it looks practical. It looks like it's going to be fun. The GT version will definitely, you know, be a good competitor to the, you know, plethora of other EVs right now. I mean, the Mach-E is doing super well. People love that. Obviously the Model Y is a huge competitor, the ID4, the new BZ4X from Toyota, the you know, the upcoming Nissan Ariya. Like, there's just so many different EVs coming out, but I really feel like the Kia one has really stood out to me. I mean, obviously the Hyundai Ioniq kind of being a twin, I also like that one as well. I really like the wheels on that one actually, but the EV6 just looks like a better practical package for people who really just want, you know, a nice daily driving EV. So I think it'll be fun. It has a lot of range. And I mean, the pricing is going to be fine. You know, this starts at, you know, just around $45,000, which is very typical for this segment right now. And I mean, I think a lot of people should go for the high performance models when that comes out, because that'll be super fun. Kia has promised 11 new EVs by 2026. So this is, you know, one of the first ones coming out, but, you know, I expect them to really electrify their entire lineup within the next few years. It'll be really interesting to see that design language, because I mean, like, The new Kia Sportage coming out, honestly, that one almost made this list because that is such a cool designed car. And the current Sportage, I think, looks hideous. So I love that they made it really nice looking. The Stinger is one of the most fun sports sedans out there right now. And I mean, overall, like, I just think that the EV6 is going to do really well. The website actually says that they'll be shipping these in January, so literally this month. So I expect them to be hitting dealerships, and you know, a lot of people will be putting out reviews soon, if not already. And yeah, you can get your hands on one pretty soon. I think the one thing that Kia has to overcome is the fact that right now some buyers still don't view them as reliable. You know, obviously the reliability isn't going to be on the same level as the Japanese automakers, but you know, obviously Kia and Hyundai have come a really far way in the last decade or so, and I'm hoping that, you know, their EV, or their EV batteries and stuff like that will work really well. You know, 232 for the standard range, and then 310 miles of range for the long range model, and I think that's, you know, those are good numbers, and if Kia can keep up its reliability, I think it's going to do really well. I also do think the interior of the EV6 doesn't look that great. I don't think it matches the you know, nice interior of even the Ioniq. I feel like the I do feel like Kia has fallen behind in terms of interior space compared to something like Hyundai, which is interesting because they're very similar. Before I move on to the last car I have on the list here, I did want to give an honorable mention to another EV that I'm excited for, the upcoming Subaru Solterra. I'm really excited for this car because I think it's a huge step forward for Subaru. Personally, like, if you've seen my reviews and stuff, like, I am not a fan of Subaru. I think the interior looks horrible in this day and age. Their technology has never really impressed me, but the upcoming Solterra looks like it's going to change these things. And I mean, I just want Subaru to show that they're more than just an all-wheel drive car. I literally feel like that's all they have going for them. At, you know, the auto show, they bring their puppies, whatever. Like, it's just, it's a little ridiculous, and I feel like it's gimmicky, and you know, they have such a dedicated buyer base, but I feel like so many of those people don't realize what they're missing on, just because they're just stuck with Subarus and they don't realize how much better the competition is in terms of, you know, interior quality and tech. But the Solterra looks like it's a huge step forward, and I'm excited to see how that does. I think it looks oddly similar to the Mach-E. I feel like they look almost identical, which is like kind of weird. I feel like they're very different brands, but you know, I'm excited to see what it looks like in person one day. And I do think that, you know, eventually when Subaru electrifies more of its lineup, hopefully it continues to keep that nice design language, and I hope the interior space becomes a lot nicer. I hate their current infotainment system, and I think, you know, the Solterra looks way better. All right, last car on my list is going to be the 2023 Lotus Emira. So this is a car I'm super excited about because it's a new mid-engine car coming out in the US, which is, you know, when's the last time that happened? The C8 Corvette obviously, you know, was groundbreaking when that came out, but, you know, it still wasn't a new car, it was just a new generation, right? But, you know, obviously competitors, C8 Corvettes, the Porsche Boxster and Cayman twins, those are all going to be really stiff competition for this car, but Lotus definitely separates itself by having that exotic flair. You know, like, people see a Lotus and they're like, wow, this must be some super exotic, crazy expensive car, right? And like, the Emira is going to start at $77,000. Obviously a lot of money, but you know, I think people who see it on the street, especially in like, you know, a sports car color like yellow, orange, green, whatever, people are going to be like, wow, this is crazy expensive. And I think that's really what, you know, a lot of people who buy those sports cars really want to show off, and you know, pretend like they you know, have a really expensive car when sometimes it's not that expensive. The Evora and Elise, I mean, those are, you know, people see those on the street and they think they're way more expensive than they really are. And it's kind of exciting to see Lotus bringing more stuff to the table now. You know, you have the crazy hypercar EV, the Avaya, coming out as well. And I mean, that car is literally insane. But it's kind of cool to see Lotus having a bit of a renaissance and being able to bring back, you know, some new cars. And, you know, in the next few years, I expect them to continue releasing some new cars, which will be really interesting to see how it revitalizes that economy. So I'm very excited to see one of those on the road at some point. You know, every time I see an Elise or an Evora on the streets, it's always such an exciting time, even though, like, you know, they're not the greatest cars traditionally, but, you know, I feel like Lotus just has a very interesting niche in the sports car world, and, you know, they're always going to be well respected for sports car enthusiasts. You know, the car does remind me a decent amount of an F-Type, so I expect those to get cross-shopped a decent amount, you know, kind of that roadster class. But, you know, at the end of the day, both of those have that exotic look to them that make people think it's a lot more expensive than it really is. They have a really interesting rollout for, you know, shipping these to dealerships. So the actual Emira itself, the $77,000 base model, is going to start hitting dealerships in spring 2023. So it'll be almost, you know, over a year until we see that car. But the first edition, which has a supercharged V6, which is well over 6 figures, that one is going to start hitting dealerships later this year in fall 2022. So it'll be really exciting to see people who get those. I mean, obviously the enthusiasts will flock to that, and I'm really excited to see one of those on the road at some point. All right, guys, there you have it. 5 exciting cars coming out in 2022. So this was definitely a little different from my normal reviews, so let me know in the comments if you liked it or not. Thanks so much for watching. Happy New Year to everyone, and if you want to check out some other videos like this, check out my reviews up here, and you can subscribe down here. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.